Hi, I'm Nicole Ferraro, and this is The Divide, a podcast from Light Reading exploring the ongoing digital divide, why and where it still exists, and what needs to be done to get people everywhere connected to reliable, high-speed internet. My guests today are Dave Seliger, Chief Digital Equity Officer at the New York City Department of Housing Preservation and Development, and Dr. Brandy McNeil, who serves as the Deputy Director of Branch Programs and Services at the New York Public Library and is President of the Public Library Association. In this second of two episodes of The Divide, focused on digital equity in New York City, we discuss their collaboration on New York City's Neighborhood Tech Help program, which is a pilot program which pairs digital navigators with New Yorkers who need help using the internet and their devices. We get into the program's origins, who it's designed to help and why, where those help sessions are taking place, how the program is funded and sustained, and more. All right. Dr. McNeil and Dave, welcome to the podcast. It is such a pleasure to get to speak with you both this morning. Welcome. Great to meet you both. Before we get started talking about our main topic of conversation today, which is New York City's Neighborhood Tech Help program, which I'm very excited to talk about, I'd love for you both to just introduce yourselves to the podcast since this is our first time having you on. Dr. McNeil, let's start with you.
Sure. So I'm Dr. Brandy McNeil. I am the Deputy Director of the New York Public Library's Branch Programs and Services, and I'm also President of the Public Library Association.
Excellent. Dave?
Great. I'm Dave Seliger. I'm the Chief Digital Equity Officer at the New York City Department of Housing Preservation and Development, New York City's affordable housing agency.
All right, fantastic. So before we dive into our main topic of conversation, you both, sit at different but important points of in terms of knowing about the city's digital divide. So I'd love to get a sense from you, just a bit of, your take on where the digital divide is at this point in New York City and what you've learned in your respective roles about the primary barriers to broadband adoption and usage. Dave, let's start with you, and then we'll go over to Dr. McNeil.
Great. So, like I said in my introduction, I work for the city's affordable housing department. We have about 200 to 300,000 units of affordable housing that we support throughout all 5 boroughs. We have about 40,000 plus households that we support with Section 8, a rental, assistance voucher program. And as we saw during COVID, when suddenly our agency had to go remote, we quickly discovered that many of the tenants that we work with didn't have internet access or didn't have any way to get in touch with us. We ended up doing a paper survey to collect email addresses when we realized we couldn't contact anyone. And that was one of the first moments of realization that, there really is a digital divide for the tenants that we support. Maybe there's a role that we could play here. And so I've been working on this issue since COVID, but only in this role officially for a few years. And really my remit is to find ways to leverage our housing portfolio to connect buildings and tenants directly to internet access, whether it's free or low cost, and provide support on using the internet or using devices. We have a number of programs that we manage. We have Neighborhood Tech Help, which we're going to be talking about in a few minutes here, which is all about digital skills and support. And we have another program called Liberty Link that we launched this summer that's focused on building a wireless internet network to actually bring internet to our households. But we'll get into that in a little bit.
Okay, so I guess I can jump in and talk a little bit about what you've just asked. So at the New York Public Library, we've been providing digital literacy, digital equity for a while, whether it's our free access to computers, free access to Wi-Fi, access to devices. We've been doing that for quite a while. Through our Tech Connect program, which is our digital literacy program, we actually provide tech training in over 100 different topics. We provide it at all of our different branches across the Bronx, Manhattan, and Staten Island. And we also provide them in a bunch of different levels. So we provide basic, intermediate, and advanced classes. And we partner with a lot of major organizations in order to do some of this work. So Google, Microsoft, Apple, We have studios where we're on a podcast, but we actually teach podcasting, and people can come into our studios and create their own podcasts, which is really amazing. We actually provide these services in Chinese, English, Spanish, Bengali, you name it. We've got a ton of different languages. And our goal at the New York Public Library is really to advance knowledge and strengthen our communities. And we do that by empowering our New Yorkers. And what we've seen in terms of some of the barriers has really been affordability. I would say affordability, then device access has been an issue. The digital literacy in and of itself has been an issue. People actually understanding how to use their devices, how to be smart, how to understand cybersecurity. Infrastructure is obviously an issue, which is why we're so happy to be partnered with HPD on this partnership, as well as the partnership with Liberty Link. And then trust issues is actually another one as well, which I know, we might get into a bit. But I think those are really some of the barriers that we see people face.
And I should have said in my piece here, but to give a sense of the scale of the problem in New York City, we know from the Affordable Connectivity Program, at the peak of enrollment, just under 1 million households in New York City were enrolled in the ACP. And to give you a sense, there's just under about 4 million households in New York City total. So about a quarter of the city at its peak was enrolled in ACP. We're guessing that the number of people that have trouble affording internet is even higher than that, even if they didn't qualify for the ACP. So this is a problem affecting many millions of people throughout the city. So it's not just a small pocket of New York that struggles with it. It's a really good chunk of the city.
Yeah. Sorry. Oh, go ahead, Dr. McNeil, please.
No, I was going to say I'm so happy that Dave brought that up, because what's really interesting is that it's affecting everywhere in New York City, but the Bronx is one of the hardest hit, I must say. Approximately like 44% of the households in the Bronx were really set back by the ACP, kind of going away, that Affordable Connectivity Program. And that also, by it just kind of abruptly going away, I think that's where, when I was saying like the trust issues is a barrier, that really created trust issues for people, because it's like, okay, you allowed me to be able to get into this program. Some people, it just got into it, and the next thing you know, it was gone. And so I think, that is definitely one of the things that is a problem.
Absolutely. I'm glad you're both speaking to that. I had a couple of researchers on the podcast, I think last month, talking about the Bronx digital divide and a report that came out. And we really dug into that. And, with the ACP, as you guys are both talking about, there was such an effort to get people to enroll in the program. And part of that effort was dealing with the lack of trust that the program was actually, legit, gonna last, et cetera, et cetera. And then here we are unenrolling people because Congress couldn't get its act together and refund the program. Also, just before we get into the neighborhood tech help program, since we are on the topic of affordability, New York did pass the Affordable Broadband Act, I believe that's what it's called, mandating, $15 to $20 service. From your perspectives, is that actually working for people of New York City? Do you find that people are actually getting access to low income plans through that via that law?
I think just like with any public service, awareness is always going to be an issue.
Yeah.
There's a really big lag between a service or a law being passed and there being adoption. Our partners at the Office of Technology and Innovation are just spinning up efforts to actually push out and promote that program. It's certainly a major milestone in New York State and New York City to have that available. I think it's just a matter of people don't know it exists yet and don't know how to ask for it.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that your perspective as well?
Yeah, I think one of the things that happens is, laws get passed. By the time it actually trickles down into our communities, I mean, sometimes we're talking months,
right?
Sometimes for some people, years, because it's something that, and I think this also happened, and Dave mentioned it, when we think about the ACP program, now that people have already felt a way about it being taken away, that rebuilding of trust, saying, hey, well, that plan didn't work, come into this plan, that might be a little bit of tension for some people.
Yeah.
Right. So now it's, once they are made aware, now we've got to fight yet another barrier of getting them to want to actually be a part of this again.
Yeah.
And I think on the flip side, there's also, or, the combination of that trust piece or the awareness piece and the price point. We don't have enough data to know, like, is $10 or $15, is that low enough?
Right.
Or
Right.
is it a matter of it's never going to be low enough unless it's free? And even if it's free, you still need to convince someone to take advantage of it. There's so many public services in New York City or any other city that are totally free that people don't take advantage of.
Yeah.
So it's about building awareness, making them understand the value of it, or helping them understand the value of it, making them, making it make sense in the context of their lives, and hopefully making it free or extremely as low cost as humanly possible.
Yeah, with that ACP subsidy, a lot of people were getting the internet for free. That $30 on, is a big difference. Sorry, Dr. McNeil, were you going to say something?
Oh, huge difference. I mean, I think of when we were thinking about some of the programs that people could get access to and some of the subsidies. Part of the problem of it being taken away is now you're deciding between, okay, the groceries that are high, the rent that's high. Yep. Is the internet, do I really need it? And then people say, well, I'll just use my phone. And that concept of, well, I'll just use my phone is not necessarily the best, because now we're talking about, well, is the speed going to work? Are you going to actually be able to do the things you need to do on your phone? And so, it runs the gamut.
Absolutely. So, all right, I could keep you both here all day, and I want to avoid doing that because you have way better things to do than talk to me. So let's move into the Neighborhood Tech Help program. And just in terms of the trust issue here, it's so great to see this partnership with the New York Public Library, because libraries are trusted institutions. Certainly the New York Public Library is a trusted institution in our city. So it's great to see that is like the home base for people to be able to access services here. But tell me, before I get ahead of myself, which I already am, tell me a bit about the Neighborhood Tech Help program. What is it? How did it initially come about? And when was it launched? Either one of you can jump in first.
Yeah, I'll give the origin story, then I'll let Dr. McNeil describe what the program actually is. So the origin story, and I think in government, most people start paying attention when something's announced, but there's so much work that goes in this case, literal years of work. Like, I've had 1 or 2 kids in the time it's taken us to launch this and some of our other programs. I have 3. I've had 3 kids in the time it's taken me to launch Liberty Link, but that's a story for another time. Like I said, during the pandemic, we, reached out to our Section 8 households, specifically those 40,000, heard back from exactly half, 20,000, and found not only is access a problem, but even if they have the internet, they don't necessarily feel comfortable using it. Something like 90% of our households did not feel comfortable using the internet. And at the time, there was a nonprofit, Older Adult Technology Services, that I cannot speak highly enough about. They're now part of AARP, that was providing kind of help desk style service to older adults and low-income New Yorkers. Like in government with many things, you try your best to work with a partner, and it just, for your own fault, your own reasons, it doesn't happen. Procurement, that's a whole podcast on its own. And I started trying to figure out, okay, is there a government entity or a government agency? And you have that aha moment of like, oh, duh, the libraries, this is their bread and butter. I'm a super user at my local library, the Brooklyn Public Library. So I reached out to them and said, hey, I think you guys do tech training. Could you maybe do this for our tenants? We started kicking around ideas. Initially, it was going to be a door-to-door tech support program. Of course, once government lawyers get involved, this will definitely not be a door-to-door tech support program. This will be in a safe public location where no one can, get hurt or sued. But around that same time, we brought in, this is not just a Brooklyn need. This is a Bronx, Manhattan, Queens need, Staten Island too. So we brought in all the other libraries as well, and started trying to figure out, to Dr. McNeil's point, they've been doing Tech Connect for at least over a decade now. How can we leverage the magic of that, but start to offer it outside the library walls? We brought on board Ideas 42. They're a behavioral economic, design R&D nonprofit that has a partnership with New York City. to ask this question of, do the existing library programs serve our Section 8 tenants and other low-income New Yorkers? And we did a 6-month research process to really get to that question. And so I know for certain people like myself, and it sounds like you as well, the libraries are really seen as, premier institutions. And they certainly are, but as we found in our research, many of our tenants did not feel like the libraries were a safe space for them for a whole number of reasons. Many of our tenants are formerly homeless and may have had negative or traumatic experiences at a library branch. Many of our tenants are older and they see libraries as a place for young families, for kids. Many of our tenants are younger and they see the library as a place for older adults. So a lot of the folks that we spoke to kind of had preconceived notions that they weren't a good fit for a library. There was a fit for somebody, but just not for them. So this project transformed overnight from not just being about how do we provide tech support or tech education services, but how do we help unreached populations become library patrons? Even if it's not taking place at a library branch, how do we help them get served by the library and meet them in a place where they're comfortable and where we can help them? And I'll let Dr. McNeil explain how we're actually helping them.
Yeah, please do. And also just to add a little bit to my questions for you, can you also talk a little bit about how this program is being run and staffed at the libraries?
Sure. So I'll talk a bit about how we're doing at the New York Public Library. But as they've already mentioned, this is also taking place at the Queens Public Library as well as the Brooklyn Public Library. But the goal is for all of us to really kind of enhance the digital literacy that's happening in the communities. And so our models are somewhat similar. It's about us being out in the communities and helping people at other locations. And so what we're doing is we basically identified where could we possibly have what we're calling host sites. And so that was taking a look at different locations that people frequented. So we're at community centers, we're at senior centers, we're at older adult centers, we're in NYCHA housing, right? So we were trying to figure out where are people. And then we started to say, how can we expand that? And we started looking at places like cafes as well. And so we're really trying to make sure that we are in the community where people are. And then through the program, what we're doing is we staffed up our own program. So for instance, at the New York Public Library, we have about 7 people currently who are our people who have their feet on the ground and are in the communities. For us, we have 2 specific areas that we're targeting. So we're targeting the Morrisania area in the Bronx. In Manhattan, we are targeting our Washington Heights area. And so what we're doing is we kind of canvas the area, and we have staff who go out, they canvas, they do outreach, they want to make sure people are aware of the program. And then we spend pockets of time at each location during the week. And we have certain hours that we're there, so people can either set up an appointment through our NYPL.org/tech help site, or they can actually just pop into one of these locations, or when they are there already, and it's during the times that we're there, they can pop in. And that's typically how all of our centers are running, is where you can kind of go in to one of these types of centers, go in and actually take part in getting help. It's usually a 30-minute session that people get to do, and they can ask any topic that they really need help in. And then what we do is we offer it in English, Spanish, and French at our locations, because that's the community in that area, that's what they speak. So we wanted to make sure that they could get the help in the language that they actually needed the help in. And so that's kind of how the program is set up to help our patrons.
Very cool. I have a couple of quick follow-ups for you. So it sounds like you said, you're not just at library sites, you're at sites where people are already going, which I think is great. And I guess I was a little ignorant to the fact that libraries are not necessarily safe spaces for everyone, but are you finding at all that how is the reception when your support staff is going out to encourage people to look into this program? Are they feeling trusting of it? And are you finding that this program is starting to encourage more people to trust their libraries, or is that sort of a secondary hope for for this program overall?
Absolutely. I think, when Dave spoke to that, I think it's like a lot of preconceived notions about that kind of safety thing, because actually a lot of people feel like the libraries are a place that they can trust and a place that they feel safe in. You might have a couple of interactions by people who, oh, maybe it's not for me.
Yeah.
But definitely we are seeing that people really are appreciative of us actually being there. And sometimes they're like, oh, wow, yes, that's right. I could go to the library. It is right around the corner. And the way in which we're helping them, because we do kind of the short session with them to kind of fix that immediate problem, they know they can come to us for that. But when they have like something larger, or they realize like, oh, wow, this thing that I'm trying to do, you might be trying to get help with your social security, get help with your telehealth. You then realize, oh, if I need to do that, I can actually go to the library and do it. A good example is if you are trying to find a job and you're like, okay, but I've been looking on my phone, but now I need to actually do an interview and I don't want to use my phone. Well, what do? So they now know that they can go to the library and actually reserve one of our interview rooms to actually conduct their interview. And that way they don't have to worry about the background, or do they have the right technology? Do they have the right speed of connection? They don't have to worry about any of that because we offer that service. And that's the beauty of partnering with HPD and the library and bringing this program to our communities, that type of help.
And I'll just add on that, a lot of the marketing and our thinking behind the design of this program was to make it library forward. And I've had arguments with our own communications teams about why our logo isn't prominently featured on many things. And the reason is that, we don't always have the best relationship with communities. Either the landlords are upset at us or tenants are upset at us. And so even though we're trying to support our households in the best possible way, we're really trying to uplift the image and message that libraries bring as a place where anybody can get help, regardless of your background, your income level, who you look like, or maybe you don't even conceive of yourself as needing help in the first place. We spent, like I said, many years researching and designing this program. I was shocked when the Ideas 42 report came back and said many of the people we're trying to serve didn't feel comfortable at a library. But I'm a white, upper middle income, young man who grew up going to libraries in my suburban hometown and naturally gravitate towards them in New York City. So there's a lot of preconceived notions that I even have about what libraries mean to us. We chose a name that is so on the nose, Neighborhood Tech Help, but we chose it because it translates really well into 8 to 10 different languages. And B, it just explicitly says what it does. And having worked in government my entire career, and being involved in programs that are confusingly named, or don't get their message across, it was really important to just be clear, to demystify what this program is, especially when technology itself is so complicated and confusing in the first place. I mean, even trying to figure out how to get onto this website to do this podcast, and I'm in charge of digital equity, like I'm struggling here to make this stuff work. So if that doesn't bode well for me, let alone for all the millions of New Yorkers that we're trying to support here.
Absolutely. A couple of just clarifying questions for the people who are offering the support, going door to door, doing the canvassing. Are these volunteers or are they staff members?
Yes. So what we've done through funding from HPD, we've been able to actually hire staff. So they're kind of on our team. So at the New York Public Library, Brooklyn Public Library, and Queens Public Library, they are members of our team who are going out into the community. So they are being paid and they're not just volunteering their time.
Excellent. I mean, volunteers are great, but it's great that we can also create jobs through this program.
And one of the things we found actually in the research, I'm going to preempt your question, is that the most trusted members that our tenants were seeking out to help them with their tech problems was typically a cousin, a son, another family member's kid, the kid next door, to the point where we almost called this program, 1-800-call your nephew, or dial a nephew, or dial a niece for that matter. But it was just this concept of, seeking out help from the people you trust the most.
Yeah.
And largely, the people we've hired to staff these programs across all three branches, they range in ages, they range in backgrounds, ethnicities, languages spoken. But a lot of it is, frankly, students at community colleges or at the public university, or students that participated in the library's teen technology programs. So it is largely a generational, multi-generational program where it is a lot of younger people helping older adults. And I think that dynamic has largely been really successful for the program.
Yeah. And it's also just nice to form those bonds between people. So we're all talking in a slightly weird time. It's, a few days before early voting is going to start in our mayoral election. Our current mayoral administration will not be continuing. Mayor Adams has dropped out of the race, so we will have a new mayor. That's not just me speculating. So how do you, first of all, how is this program being funded? Obviously, it's coming from HPD, but is that in the annual budget? How is it being funded? How long is it projected to last at this point, and how do you prepare it to transition to a new mayoral administration? Do you guys are you reaching out to the candidates to talk about this program or what? I don't know how this actually works when you're working for city government, but go ahead.
We'll see how many of those things I can comment on before I get in trouble. I know better, Matt. You don't have to worry. Matt's our press secretary who's listening in. He's not saying anything right now. So it was a funny situation during COVID in that, completely opposite to right now, our agency actually got bonus funding from the federal government in the form of the CARES Act. Our division that focused on Section 8 specifically got, I forget the amount, but around $15 million and funding to kind of support COVID response efforts. And so at the time we knew digital equity was a major issue, I successfully argued that we should spend some of this kind of extra funding on digital equity related issues. We set aside $1 million to fund this neighborhood tech help pilot. It's an 18-month pilot. Some of the libraries have combined that funding with private funding as well to kind of extend the horizon. But each library, we gave the same amount of money, about $300,000 or so, to run this over an 18-month period, with the goal of collecting enough evidence to prove that this is a really useful thing, not just from a digital equity standpoint, but that we're supporting city agencies and other public services citywide. So, for instance, one of the top reasons people come is they have help. They need help either with the city's social services agency, or they need help with telehealth. So we're really building a case that this isn't just a digital equity thing that fits within, IT needs, but it's really a citywide necessity. And so we're making that case internally right now to try to get, long-term funding from the city to support this. Obviously, we've applied to all the relevant state funding. We've had private funders come into the conversation. We definitely have enough of a timeline here to really prove that this is a useful program. And our hope is that, whoever the final mayor is, understands the need for a program like this. But, that's kind of outside our control.
Anything you want to add to that, Dr. McNeil?
No, Dave summed it up. I think, the big thing here is that the program has been working really well. People are really benefiting from the program, the community. And what we'd really like to see is this program continue. And so, we're looking at, how we can assist in that, right? Whether that's through state grants, whether that's working with HBD, working with the New York City's Office of Technology and Innovation. How can we continue to offer this service? Because it is valuable. We can tell that from the data. 94% of our patrons who are coming to the program said that, I now feel confident when I'm using my device. Yeah. That's what we want, right? We want people to be able to walk away feeling confident and being able to navigate today's technology. And it's, it's only going to continue to innovate and expand. We see what's happening with AI, and people are going to need to understand, how do they navigate that? What does AI do? What should I not do? Yeah. And I think that, having this type of funding is something that we need to think about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and two things I want to add to that, actually. Sorry.
Please.
One is that, I mean, the range of things we're helping patrons with, clients with, really runs the gamut. I mean, I see the data, and it will be someone bringing in a laptop from the 1980s in the hopes that it still works. And then the very next person's bringing in a 3D printer. Someone brings in a smartwatch, and then someone can barely use their phone to change, the language settings. We were out in Far Rockaway a week or two ago, pretty much the furthest reaches of New York City. Actually, Long Island was closer to Lower Manhattan than we were at that point. That's how far we were, deep into Far Rockaway. And there was an older woman in this senior center who said, since I started coming here, I'm no longer afraid to pick up my phone. I used to get all these calls that were spam. And now I've learned when I pick up my phone, I go, "Who is it?" And I'm no longer afraid. And I'm like, okay, if that's the sole thing that we're solving for people, I'm okay with that, because I get spam calls too, and I don't want to answer the phone. So if we've helped this individual build the confidence to actually pick up their phone in case it's an important phone call, that's great.
Yeah.
And then the other thing on the funding side, and we don't talk about this enough, but I know that cities and states across the country are really struggling to keep funding their digital equity programs in the wake of the digital equity grant really being cut.
Yeah, at the federal level, just to clarify.
At the federal level. And what's funny is we're using a source of funding for this program and for Liberty Link that, as far as we know, no other municipality has used before. We are using Section 8 administrative fees. So basically, the way that Section 8 funding works is that it comes down from HUD to public housing authorities. Despite our name, we are in fact a public housing authority. There's also the New York City Housing Authority, which is the biggest one in New York City. Funnily enough, we're also one. New York City is a funny place. We've got 2 public housing authorities and 3 libraries. It's a confusing place to work. But when you get Section 8 funds, you get money to pay for vouchers, and then you get a small percentage to use to run the program. And it turns out, and we had a back and forth with HUD about this a few years ago, you can use funding, those administrative fees, to support your clients in interacting with your program. And so if your program is fully online and no longer paper-based, so ours used to be paper-based and we spent $1 million a year on postage. We no longer do that, thank God. Ours is very much online. We have portals we're launching. And so in order to help our clients use these portals, they need internet access and they need the support to use it. And so we were able to successfully argue to HUD, and they approved this, to use Section 8 funds to support this program. And it was an interesting conversation because no one had ever tried to do this before. And so I encourage any public housing authority that has some admin fees left over to consider supporting a tech help program like this one, because I'm sure other people in their community could really benefit from this too.
That's such a great point. And I do want to close this out because I know I've taken more of your time than I said I would. But so I think that's a great way to close this out, Dave, in terms of advice for other cities that might want to look for funding sources for their programs. Any other final takeaways or advice that you would impart to other cities looking into this? Dr. McNeil, you want to come in?
Yeah, I think if you're thinking about doing a program like this, I would think it's really important to really get out into the community and think outside of the box. I think that's the best way to think about the work that we do. As we have people in the community helping, it's really been thinking outside of the box that's got us into cafes. Where are people at? That's why, to me, it's so important. Like, if we can be at the DMV, if we could be at the Social Security office, that's where people are going. Where are they sitting and having idle time where they could be learning something, learning how to use that tool that can help them get the SNAP benefits, that can help them with unemployment, that can help them with Social Security. And so I would suggest that people think about that.
And I'll just add in, just as a sneak peek, hot off the presses, you're the first one to report on this, Nicole. Matt, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. You can cut this in post. We're actually open sourcing all of the materials that we created for Neighborhood Tech Help. we'll be launching a microsite where other cities, states, other public housing authorities can use our playbook. They can use all of our marketing materials. They can even use the illustrations that we created for this program. And we give advice on funding ideas to fund programs like this. So, that's kind of our gift. Like, we were lucky enough to have the funding to create this program. And now we're going to give it out to the rest of the country to actually put it to practice if it's useful.
Amazing. It's a perfect way to close us out on a breaking news item that's going to help the rest of the country. Thank you so much, Dr. McNeil and Dave and Quiet Matt in the background, for your time and all of the wonderful work you're doing to help the people of New York.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Dave and Dr. McNeil, for joining me. Thank you as well to Pierre Landriau for editing this episode. Be sure to subscribe to the Light Reading Podcast for more episodes of The Divide, as well as interviews and insights from the Light Reading team. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.